Hi, good morning. It's David Rizzo with the plant checklist for November. I sort of forgot, so we're running a little bit late. So we're going to go over the checklist for November, and don't forget to. I want to go over a few things before we start. Don't forget we're having a huge fall sale on plants right now, 30% off a lot of the drought tolerant stuff. So like your wistringias and all your cactus and succulents and your Australian plants like your proteas and your phormiums and all that stuff is 30% off. So that's a good deal on them. So come in and watch for our other live streams. We do have another thing going on right now that's a sage in every garden. So they're giving away 1 4-inch white sage. So Salvia apianas are a really good California native. This is what they use in ceremonial, some of the Indians, for the smudge bundles or the smudge. So these are really good, but you actually one per household free. So apianas, they can get big, so put them in a lot of sun. And with any of the natives, now's the time to plant. You don't want too much water on them. Even if we get a rainstorm once a week, don't water. And I'll talk more about watering, and I want to talk more about some of the natives of plant right now. So that's going on right now. And okay, let's go into November's checklist. I almost tripped over the thing. That was good. Okay, so as we really go into winter, so fall we're coming through, and we're not far from winter. So November is really a changing of the weather. So we go from October, somewhere 75, 80 in the day and 65 at night. Now we're starting to really see the temperatures cool down. So we're going to start getting into 65 in the day and 55 at night. So we're sort of done with a lot of the summer stuff. And so looking at like the vegetables, I'm going to take my glasses off. My glasses keep on fogging up. So the winter vegetables, now is the time to put in your winter vegetables. So right now, I'll be putting in my own garden broccoli, cauliflower, kale, cabbage, lettuce, arugula, all that stuff likes cooler weather, and even cilantro as an herb too. Cilantro likes cool, and then I just said arugula. Arugula doesn't like the hot weather, so it bolts in summer. So even collard greens are good to put in right now. You have the one of my favorites though. This is one of my favorite arugula. This is called Astro, and Astro is a really good one. This one is a larger leaf variety, but I do like Astro. You have some of your mustard greens like Osaka purple and Osaka green. Now these are really spicy, so if you like spiciness, sometimes in the seeds they'll say like a tangy mixed mescaline, which is mixed seeds. That's going to be in there for the spiciness. One thing I wanted to show you guys, I don't do carrots from transplants. So that's one thing with carrots, because what happens is carrots form a taproot. I'll take one out. So they form a taproot. And what happens is when you buy them in a transplant, they'll swerve their container, their roots, and so you won't really get a long straight carrot. You'll get like this swirling of all these roots together. So when you're doing them, I'm going to go over seeds in a minute, but do the carrots and seeds. So anything that's a root crop, beets, carrots, radishes, and even daikons and all the other root crops, turnips, do them in seeds. Direct sow them in your garden. So I'll talk more about seeds in a second. So we have all the different varieties of kale. So you have like your red Russian kale, you have your Italian kale. All of them are great to plant right now. One thing to remember when you are doing all your cauliflower and your broccoli, watch them for the caterpillars, because you're going to start seeing a lot of caterpillar damage on them. What I'll do is, if I get caterpillars really bad, I'll either use these two organic sprays. So BT, Bacillus thuringiensis, that's a really good one, only for caterpillars, or spinosad. And sometimes if the caterpillars get really out of control, I will spray once a week. You know, I'll just go out there and light spray them. So either one of these will work. They're both bacterial diseases, and they don't hurt anything else. Fully organic, 100%. So these are good. And sometimes what I do is I'll save the bottles when I'm done, and put a little bit in there and do the concentrate with some water and shake it up really good. And you really want to keep track on those caterpillars, because they will really chew stuff up. And if you start seeing a lot of aphids on your cauliflower, because this time of year you'll get a silver aphid that will go after broccoli, that will go after Brussels sprouts, and so I just take an organic soap. This is safer, fatty acid soap, works really good. You can spray this on them, wash it off, you're good to go. So love using this soap, and I do like a lot of the safer products because they're very concentrated and they're not watered down. So one of my favorite organic companies that I love, if you have a problem with slugs or snails, with spinach, with lettuce, this is an organic slug bait called Sluggo. It's an iron phosphate. So it's safer on pets, safer on animals, and it just breaks down to iron in your garden. So safe to use, good to use, even around citrus. So that's one I use for slugs and snails. Okay, let's go into the rest of it. So so now that the veggies, all like this is the time too. So when I say we're done with all that summer stuff, anything that fruits, anything that's fruiting is done. Tomatoes are done, peppers are done. Squash and eggplant, all that stuff. I had some Samarizanos in my garden and they set their fruits about 4 weeks ago. They're not really ripening that quick, so I'm going to yank them out. And in that area of my garden, I'll start direct sowing lettuce, spinach, cilantro, and I'm going to put my garlic in too. Garlic is the time to put in. So I'm going to go through seeds really quick of my favorite varieties. And so with carrots, so carrots, I like the Danivers. The Daniver longs, these are really long carrots, so you need a really loose soil. I always do a little row of them about, I don't really go really deep when I seed them, maybe like a quarter of an inch. But the thing with these is they want a long, like really a real deep soil, like a 10 to 12 inches. Now, if you have heavy clay, you can always go with the smaller carrots that I like too, like the little 8-ball carrots like Romeo. You have the French baby carrots, like the little fingers. These will work in heavier soil. And carrots take a little while. They can take over 100 days to actually produce. But one thing with carrots too, with any root crops, you always want full sun. Full sun, because what they'll do, this is a good one too called King Midas. Really good company I like, Renee Shepherd Seeds, good company. And Botanical Interests are good too. So I didn't really bring up any of the beets, but you could do beets right now. Like you could do your Italian Chioggias, you can do your bull's blood and your Detroit red. With beets though, one of my favorites, I love gold beets. So if like you can seed any of your gold beets right now, so they're okay. Radishes too, you want to do French breakfast. They're not as spicy. So when you get the little red radishes, they're going to be really spicy. So if you want more of a milder, sweeter radish, do the French breakfast, because radishes are really fast. So they'll produce in like 35-45 days. So very quick. So they're good to do right now. Let's see what else I got. One of my favorite things though that I always look forward to going into this time of year is I love greens. And so I'm such a big fanatic about growing my own lettuce. And this is one by Renee, it's called California Spicy Green. So this is gonna have a lot of the Asian greens in there, like the mustard greens, like Mizuna. It's gonna have the Osaka purple, and it's gonna have some good ones in there, and then have the Endov. So this is a really good, I like when they're mixed already, so that I'm gonna direct sow right in my garden, the little rows. But again, when I seed these very shallow, quarter of an inch deep, pat it down, water it really good. I like the cut and come again. So this is the baby leaf lettuces mix, like that one, it's good. Another favorite is I love the royal oak leaf. So I always seed the royal oak leaf because tender, juicy, very flavorful. But another one of my favorites that I actually do a lot is the gourmet baby greens. This is one of my favorite because I have a mixture of all the lettuces in here. So like the baby greens, you can start doing your spinach right now. So spinach, this is Bloomsdale. I don't like the Savoy spinach as much. I'm going after more like the Corvair and some of the other types, Space, and there's a whole bunch of them that are smoother baby spinach. I like those, and those are good to do right now. Even peas. So you have a couple of different varieties of peas. So the peas are good right now. The sugar snaps are my favorite. I direct sow them. I make a little trellis about 4 to 6 feet tall in full sun, and I plant a row of seeds underneath them. Now I could split half maybe sugar snaps and then half the snow peas. Another one of my other favorite snow peas, I like these Oregon Sugar Pod 2. So that's a really good snow pea variety. So now's the time to do it. And if you plant them now, they should start producing by the time you go into late winter, early spring. So time for those. So you could do all the kales. The chard is good right now. The Nera Toscana kale. So those are ready to do right now from seed. So those are all the vegetables. Herbs, herbs I didn't really bring that many out, but you're gonna do all the perennial herbs right now. So parsley and thyme, dill and sweet basil are gonna go away. So all the basils are gonna go away because it's getting too cold at night. So even if you see them, you might try to grow them in the house, but if you see some of the ones at some of the grocery stores, you can grow them in a sunny window, but once we go below 55 at night, they just don't grow because they like it hotter. So basil, next year when you come out into April, that's when I seed my basil, okay? So, but think of all of the perennial herbs right now. So you're looking at chives, garlic and onion. You're looking at rosemary, Tuscan blue, Spice Island, barbecue. You're looking at all the mints like Mint the Best, Moroccan, chocolate mints like the peppermints and all those. Those are good right now. You could do lovage, you could do all of the perennials, parsley, oregano. I do like the Mexican oregano right now because I'm using it a lot when I make my pizzas. And so, yeah, so if you ever see me on Instagram, I make a lot of pizzas. So Mexican oregano, favorite. So that's with the herbs. And again, with watering a lot of this stuff, we're getting rainstorms. If we get weekly rainstorms, I don't water anything. I'll water good when I put stuff in, but I don't water that frequently in wintertime. I sometimes will water about every 10 days. If we don't have any rain for a month and a half, I will soak it sometimes every 7 to 10 days. And so let's go into the annuals right now. So if you guys have any questions about the veggies and the herbs, you can ask me at the end. So now is the time, now that we're done with all the summer annuals, so now's the time. Your pansies, so all your majestic, I don't want this thing to fall off the table though, and it's about to, sorry. So all your pansies right now, like the majestic, this is Delta Blaze Mix. Love these. You have white majestics. So the way they call these majestics is because they have a face to them, but very good variety, larger flower, really good rebloomer. And with pansies, let me actually pull one up again. Pansies, when you plant them, you want to put them in full sun, and you don't want to plant them too deep because they'll rot. So you can actually lightly amend your soil with a planting mix, like a compost, like soil building compost. And when you do, don't plant them deep. Even when I push these out of the color pack, let me just pick one up and I'll show you. Sometimes what I do is I just literally just whittle away that soil and plant it right here. But sometimes I'll take my thumb and I'll just sort of, but I'll plant it just like that, because if I bury these deep, they're going to rot really easy. And sort of watch them for the pill bugs too, because the pill bugs will get in there and start chewing on the trunk, because the trunk pansies are so tender that, again, you just want to go in and lightly sprinkle your sluggo. I only get 1 pound cans, put a handful in and just sprinkle it all around the areas if I have pill bugs or snail damage or slug damage, all that. And there's one that I didn't bring up with pill bugs. Pill bugs use Sluggo Plus because that one works more for pill bugs. This one that I brought up is really mainly for snails and slugs. So that's just regular Sluggo. So for pill bugs and for earwigs, you want the plus. Okay, so I'm gonna grab a couple other things here. So the cousin, I'm out of the, sorry. So cousin to pansies are the little violas. Now the little Johnny jump ups or the violas, these are really durable. So same conditions, full sun, regular water but not too wet. You don't want to rot them out. And they'll bloom all the way into March or April. So I love the little Johnny jump ups or the pansies. This is called Sorbet Icy Blue. So it has that purple sort of lavender color to it. And then you have yellows and reds and some different mixes. So violas right now, snapdragons you want to do right now. There's a lot of different varieties of snapdragons. I like the sonnets. So the sonnets, let me show you. Sonnets are like sort of in between the dwarf and the tall. So sonnets will get usually about 1.5 to 2 feet tall, and you can put them in the back of your shorter annuals. So sonnets I like. I don't know if we're going to get rockets this year. Rockets get really tall, like 3 to 4. And then there's dwarfs like the Liberties and some of the Montegos. And I found that when you get into the taller snapdragons, they bloom longer and more frequently. So all the snapdragons you can do right now, full sun, regular water but not over water. I didn't bring any ornamental cabbage. So ornamental cabbage is big right now. So all the ornamental cabbage and kale plant right now, so that's a good one. What else is there? Oh, there's a lot of stuff like calendulas will start coming in. You can do some of the annual sort of perennial, like some of the dianthus are good right now. So, and the English daisies, there's a bunch of stuff coming in. And even now is a big time of season too for the shade gardens. So like when you get into doing more of the shade gardens, or the shade annuals and perennials, we're done with New Guinea impatiens. New Guinea impatiens are usually May to about October. Now we're going to start bringing in the cyclamens. So now it's cyclamen season. So like the red cyclamens, the purple cyclamens, there's white, there's so many different colors. So cyclamens they love the cooler conditions and they love to go through the winters. So we plant them usually around November right now, and they'll go to about like April or so. And then as you get into May, they'll stop blooming, and then I'll take them out and I'll start going with my other ones, which are New Guinea impatiens. So I tend to put these in more shade, like morning sun, afternoon shade, because I found that if you get some of the reds in full sun, they'll actually bleach out and turn a whitish red. So I actually like to really go through and put my cyclamens in morning sun. And when I'm not going to do it because they have their new flowers, but when you're done with the bloom, you just reach in there and give it a tug and pull it out. Because if you look, it's hard to see, but all the flowers come out of the center. So these are cyclamens, just keep on blooming and blooming and blooming. Great for the holidays too, because you get the reds and the whites, and you can mix them with ornamental cabbage and do some dusty miller. So really good seasonal flower that's really great. And you can put them in containers too, but sometimes not too much sun, not too much full sun. So that's the cyclamens. Good to plant right now. Good to good. Really, it's really a winter plant. So now we're going to November. They like the cold nights. So that's with the cyclamens. And next, I'll talk about the bulbs. So bulbs. Now that we're really into bulb season, we're going to be planting all the bulbs. Some of the Christmas bulbs. I'm going to go over the spring flowering bulbs first, and then I'll talk more about the forcing bulbs. So right now, we're going to be planting all of our daffodils, and I grabbed some. Daffodils, also called narcissus. So these are daffodils. This is a variety called Yellow Cheerfulness. This looks like a little smaller dwarf variety. They'll probably get about 10, 12 inches tall. So always, and one thing I like about daffodils, they really are for our climate. They'll naturalize. They'll bloom in spring. Don't plant them really deep. Sometimes I'll even just bury them just barely where the neck is. I don't like to put them really deep under the soil because you can rot them out. So I do like the dwarf Yellow Cheerfulness, and they then you have some little white. This is a white variety. Oh no, these are well, I'll go into these. These are different. So I didn't grab the other ones, but anyway, so the daffodils are one that you'd plant right now. You don't have to chill them. Freesias are another one right now. So this is a white freesia. Some of the other bulbs that you're going to be planting right now, you're going to be planting all of the ranunculus. Ranunculus are right now. Even some of the other South African bulbs like Spraxis and Watsonias and all that, it's good to plant them right now. I don't really have that many of them, but I do like sort of the bulbs that you don't have to chill. Now the other group of spring flowering bulbs that you have to chill in the fridge, you have some of these. These are your long stem white tulips. Now with tulips, since we don't get cold enough in our winters, you'll have to chill these in the refrigerator for 6 to 8 weeks before you plant them. That way they get enough chill. The main thing with tulips in our climate, since we don't get snow, we don't get down to freezing. If you plant them like this out of the bag, you'll get very short stems. So if you want the longer stems, with the tulips and even the hyacinths and the crocus, they're better to put in the refrigerator and chill. And what I usually do is I like to take them out of the bag and I like to put them in a paper bag, because I feel that sometimes the plastic holds too much water and sometimes they can rot in the bag, and you always want to keep them away from any fruits that can affect the bulb itself, like no apples, no pears, any of that stuff. So that's the tulips. And so there's another pink variety, and so those are basically some of the spring flowering bulbs. Now I'm going to talk more about the forcing bulbs. So we're getting a lot of paper whites in right now, and so the paper whites you're going to be forcing them right now. So with paper whites, you always will force them 4 to 5 weeks before you want them to bloom. So right now, if you want them for Thanksgiving, we're already into like the 4th or the 5th, and so now's the time to plant them for Thanksgiving. And what you do is you can plant them in rock, you can plant them in soil. I usually like to do the soil, and I'll put a little bowl, maybe 6 inches deep. I'll barely bury the neck in good potting soil, and I'll grow them outside because they'll be slower. So if you force them inside, sometimes they'll come up and maybe bloom in 2 to 3 weeks. So that's one thing. I'll put them outside where it's cool, and I'll let them grow, sometimes in a little bit of shade or more sun, not too much shade, but usually about half day to full day sun. And then they'll grow, and then as I get closer to Thanksgiving, I'll bring them inside and I'll let them really grow so they bloom. So, because now that we're getting cold and we're starting to heat the houses, these bulbs are going to come up quick. So that's what you got to watch out for. And you can do them in rock also, because they will root down into the water, but sometimes with the rock, the water will actually get a little bit algae. So every few days you have to dump out the water and put fresh water in there so it doesn't become stagnant. I'm sort of the lazy gardener, so I like to do them in soil, but it's good too. You can always put them in soil and then put a little bit of layer of gravel over it, so then it's more decorative for the holidays. So yeah, so that's the paper white. So the bigger they are, the better they're going to bloom. Some of them that are smaller, that have the little bulbets on them, they have probably this little bulbet. You can actually plant them, but they'll bloom next year. And then sometimes if they're really smaller bulbs, they might not bloom as strong. So pick the larger bulbs when you're going for them, and look for rot spots. Like this little bulb right here, I don't know if I grabbed any more, I don't think I did, but this one looks like very clean, very white. I don't see any rotting, I don't see any fungal, so that one's good to go. So the next thing that we're really going into for the holidays is all your Christmas amaryllis. So Christmas amaryllis, the roots look good on them. They put these covers on them to sort of protect them when they ship them so they don't get scraped. But I'm going to take this off because I just want to show you the bulb. So this is a nice bulb, really nice size. You always want the mother bulb. So the best blooms, you always want the mother bulbs, the larger the bulbs. And this is Red Lion. So Red Lion is a really good large red variety. And again, when I plant this, I'm going to plant it about 4 to 6 weeks before I want it to bloom, and I'm going to put it in a good rich draining potting soil. I'll plant them up to the neck. Reason why I don't like to plant as deep is I don't want it to rot as it grows up. And so these will bloom in 4 to 6 weeks. So if you want them for Thanksgiving, plant them now. If you want them for Christmas, you buy them, you put them in a paper bag, you put them in a drawer somewhere that's really dark so they don't come up. Then you plant them the first week of December. You do that the same thing with paper whites. If you don't want them to come up yet, buy them that aren't really sprouting yet, even where they're not showing the sprout. Paper bag, really dark location, and they'll stay dormant. So, and the main thing with these bulbs, like anything that you're growing, when you do plant them, container, ground, or wherever you're putting them in, you always want to make sure that you're not keeping them overly wet, because bulbs have a really more of a chance in rotting in wet soil. So always keep them a little bit, keep them hydrated, but don't try not to keep them overly wet. So that's important with bulbs. And I do like to feed the soil though too, because bulbs are notorious for taking up the nutrients and using the nutrients. So when I'm planting like the daffodils and the freesias outside, I'll use an all-purpose fertilizer, and sometimes I'll add a little bit extra bone meal for my calcium and phosphorus. And when you are growing these, always let the bulbs die down completely before you cut the flower stems off, because if you cut those flower stems off, you're going to starve out the bulb. So that food and all those nutrients have to go back down in that bulb. That's when you cut it. So that's with the bulbs. Now I'm going to go through a little bit of the California natives. So now is the time to plant your Cal natives. So all your natives. So now that we're really going into November, we're getting some rain. So now is the time to plant all of them. So your ceanothus, like your Ray Hartman for bigger ones, your frost, all of them. Even some of the really small ones, like the ground cover types too, like the ceanothus gracilius, like the Yankee Point and the Diamond Heights and all those, plant them now. Manzanitas I do like right now, so they're good. I pulled a couple of them. Let's see, where did I do with them? Oh, I put them on this, I put them over here. So one of my favorites though, oh yeah, this is a good one. This is called woolly blue curls, trichostemia. They can be a little tricky to grow because they don't like a lot of water. So the flowers, I love the smell on them. They almost smell like grapefruit juice. So love trichostemia, but this is a real true native. So don't like, you can let the rainwater take care of it, water a little bit to get started. But another thing that people don't realize with most California natives, as we go into summer, most of them go dormant. So you got to really watch your water in summer. Summer is usually their dormancy, so not too much, but now's the time. This is one of my favorites. I love all the sages and I love all the other ones, but my favorite that I love, so when I hike around and I see this is called your Matilaha poppy. And Matilaha poppy, or Rhamnia colchii, it gets huge. They sometimes call it the scrambled egg flower because the flowers are really large white with yellow center and they get huge. These plants will probably get anywhere from 10 to 15, 20 feet tall. They establish really good right now. So I like the little ones, and they do spread by roots. So the plants can get pretty wide. So plant them where you really want to maybe hide your neighbor, or you just like a really big statue, a really big focal point plant. But love this plant, one of my favorites. But now is the time to plant it because in the winter time, it actually produces more roots. In the summertime, it flowers, but no roots in summer. So when you plant it, you want to plant it right now. So that's important with that. And then you have some of the other ones. This is a variety of hollyleaf cherry. You don't see these that much. This is Prunus ictifolia, and so this is a good one. This gets into a pretty tall shrub, but one of the native prunus, so that's a good one. I love the buckwheats too. If you guys really want to draw the flowers, this is Agaronium rubens. So this is the pink red. So this is a great one for the butterflies. So love the buckwheats, and buckwheats established now. We talked about the sages, so the Apianas. One thing with the white sage, like I was telling you, I do like the standard. There is a dwarf variety, but I'm not big on the dwarfs. I like the big. So these will get about 4 to 6 feet tall, about 4 to 6 feet wide. So love the white sage, the Apianas. And I think that's about all I brought up with the natives. But remember with the natives, I don't feed them. I let the rainwater take care of them. I soak them really good. I always water them. And this is a funny thing with me. When I got into installing a lot of native gardens, I started watering them like it's raining. So you don't want to put them on a system that gets watered like 3 times a week because you'll rot them out. So what I do is I like to soak them. I like to gradually let them dry out, soak them. And there's some really good flowering natives too, like your mimulus, your sticky monkey flowers. There's some natives that are native to Baja California, like the Verbena dilamina. There's different varieties of the mallows. There's some really good mallows that one of my customers has in Costa Mesa that I love. But again, not much water in the summertime. Summer dormancy, winter establishment. So that's important for natives. And I know a lot of people want to put so much compost and amendments. And again, sometimes I'll mix in some DG. I might throw in some cactus, some broken down wood, but I don't want to over amend the soil and have them all rot out. So that's important. But I do like to break up the clay, and sometimes I'll do a little cactus mix, a little DG. There are some really good native plant mixes that are more DG based, more of a grit, and that helps the soil drain. It helps the soil really dry that water out, where you really want to watch out with a lot of wood product and a lot of compost. That's where I stay away from natives. And so so that's with the natives. So I'm going to wrap this up really quick. So now is a good time to do your camellias. So we're getting in all of our camellias. I'm going to actually take some of this down here. Let's take some of this down. So this one, so there's a couple different varieties of camellias, but now is the time. This is Camellia japonica. Let me stand to the side. So this is Camellia japonica. So this is your Japanese camellias. And Japanese camellias, you plant them now, and they're in their flowering stage. So it's a good time to plant them in the wintertime. And they'll start blooming around Christmas to usually spring. With the most important with Japanese camellias, morning sun, afternoon shade. No sun in the afternoon, no hot summer sun, but a couple, 2-3 hours of morning and then shade the rest of the day. And another thing that people don't realize with camellias is they have two growing seasons. They have a flowering season and a growing season. So their flowering season starts as early as late August, September, and that's when they start getting ready to develop their buds, and that lasts all the way to May. Don't feed them in like their flowering season. So from August to May, no fertilizers, because what will happen is excessive nitrogen can get them to drop their buds. So no feeding. You can plant them right now, you can amend them, you can put them in your areas you want to plant them, but no fertilizing. I usually feed them once slightly in June, once slightly in July, and once slightly usually August. But come late August, September, no feeding. And but this one is called Nucio's Gem, and Nucio's Gem is a really good variety. It's more of a big white variety. So there's so many good varieties. There's Bob Hope, there's Nucio's Gem, there's Silver Waves, there's Tom Knudsen, there's what are the other ones I like? There's one called Bella Rosa. There's a little dwarf pinkish red variety called Bella Rosa. There's Kramer Supreme, ton of them. So come in and talk to us if you're looking for the Japanese camellias. We also have the Sasanquas, the sun camellias. They can take a little bit more sun near the coast, but if you're far inland, still put those Sasanquas in a little bit of shade because they're going to burn. So the difference between the Japanese camellias and the sun camellias, Japanese camellias bloom later and longer, where the sun camellias, the Sasanquas, bloom really now till really into December. So usually late October, November, they usually bloom for about 4 to 6 weeks. You have uprights, you have bush varieties, you have Setsugeka is a really good white, you have Bonanza, you have Apple Blossom. One of the favorites, a good one that's a little red Sasanqua. So yeah, so Yuletide is a good one. So that's with the camellias. So keep them growing, plant them right now. And let me set this one down. And again with camellias, try not to overwater them. So that's the main thing. Water them really good and keep them, don't feed them right now. That's the other thing that I just talked about. And wrapping it up, it's still a good time to plant all your perennials. So all your perennials. Make sure I'm putting in perennials right now. We're starting to slow down. I'm not feeding them that much, so like your salvias, your wistringias, all that stuff. Now is the time for perennials. I didn't really bring any roses up, but roses are going to start really slowing down, so light trim them. And as we go more into November, I don't fertilize them in November. So no fertilize in November. And that's with all your roses. Good time to plant them right now, but they're going to be very slow because it's getting colder at night. The roots are the soil is cooling down, so not much with that. Fruit trees right now are going to start slowing down also, so I really don't feed them. I try to get in some citrus, like last sort of planting a citrus, because if we get any colder, the citrus don't like that wet, cold soil. So definitely no feeding on those. So really when you go into November, December, and most January, I don't feed that much stuff, but I will start feeding roses more in January. But that's, with that. But November, the main thing about this month, before I wrap it up, you're letting stuff sort of slow down and and some plants are taking off, but most of them is slowing down. So no fertilizing as much when it's slowing down, because you want to feed when it's active growth in the spring. So that's it for today. Thank you guys for joining me, and we're going to take some questions right now, and if you guys have any questions.
Okay, so one of the questions was, what's the best bug spray for caterpillars?
So they're asking what's the best spray for caterpillars. I like two of them. So I like my two favorites. Let me get them over here. Oh, I don't want to knock that down. My two favorites, let me hold them up. So this one I love using, it's called BT, Bacillus thuringiensis. It's basically just only for caterpillars, but very effective. So I use BT. Another one that's very effective is spinosad. So I use these two a lot when I go in. Another one that I really like is called Captain Jack's. That's spinosad. So spinosad or BT are good. And if the caterpillars are really bad, spray about once a week, every 7 to 10 days, you know. And in the evening, I like to spray this too. Okay?
Are anemone bulbs available to plant now?
I have not seen anemones. Anemones have been very, very hard to get. So a long time ago, we would always get a lot of the Japanese anemones. And anemones are great spring bloomers, but I just haven't seen anemone bulbs. So that's been a tricky one, because years ago, that was one of my favorite things to plant. I love Japanese anemones because you get the purple ones, the white ones, but I see more of the plants in spring. I just don't see the bulbs, you know.
And then somebody said, when I plant lettuce, it seems to seed really quickly. Is there anything you can do to stop that?
She's asking, what about lettuce that's seeding really quickly? So the main thing with lettuce, like I was telling you guys earlier, I love lettuce and I grow lettuce. But the one thing with me, I'm a pretty extremist when it comes to lettuce. I don't plant lettuce in summer at all. You know, I don't buy the plants, I don't seed. Lettuce doesn't like it when it's 80 degrees in the day and 60s at night. Lettuce likes it when we're 60s in the day and 40s, 50s at night. So I plant lettuce right now, and I planted a lot of them in packs, and then I'm going to direct sow some in the ground. But again, my favorite time for lettuce is November, December, January, February, March. But as we go into April, it starts getting hotter, starts getting 75. Lettuce is done. I don't do lettuce in summer, because if you do lettuce in June, July, and August, it's just like cilantro, it's going to bolt, and it's going to keep on bolting. If I plant lettuce right now, lettuce will actually last me, it should last me about, oh gosh, if I plant lettuce color packs right now, I'll keep on cutting them, and I'll get them to last November, December, January, February. And then I rip out that lettuce and put new lettuce in, and that should give me February, March. By April, it's going to bolt, it's done.
And are the peony roots available now?
No, we don't really do peonies. Because the thing with peonies, I'm going to tell you, most peonies that are like the herbivorous types need a higher chill than what we get here. So we do get a variety Monrovia in the spring called Ito. Now, Ito is closer to a tree peony that doesn't need really high chill or cold weather, because when you get into those bulb peonies that they grow up in Oregon, Washington, they grow in the Sierras, they like getting down to like 0 or snow on the ground. So that's the biggest thing why we don't get peony bulbs, and we don't get the Ito type in the plants, more in the plants in spring, because a lot of the peonies need a high chill. Okay, thank you for joining me today. This is David Rizzo. And if you have any questions, come in and talk to me. You guys have a great day and happy gardening.